As to this man, Joseph Smith, let us say, here is a man who was chosen before he was born, who was numbered with the noble and great in the councils of eternity before the foundations of this world were laid. Here is a man who was called of God, as were the prophets of old.
The area near Palmyra, New York, had become a place of unusual excitement on the subject of religion during young Joseph's boyhood years there. I invite you to consider these rather remarkable thoughts and feelings from a boy of such a tender age. He wrote, I was one day reading the Epistle of James, 1st chapter and 5th verse, which reads, If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him.
Early one morning, he stepped into a grove, now called sacred, and knelt and prayed, having faith that God would give him the enlightenment which he so earnestly sought. Two personages appeared to Joseph, the Father and the Son. He later wrote, I had actually seen a light, and in the midst of that light, I saw two personages, and they did in reality speak to me. And though I was hated and persecuted for saying I had seen a vision, yet it was true. For I had seen a vision. I knew it, and I knew that God knew it, and I could not deny it.
It was on the night of September 21st in 1823 in an upstairs bedroom while 5 of his brothers slept. Joseph prayed that he might know of his state and standing before God. In response to Joseph's penitent and faithful prayer, Moroni, a heavenly messenger, appeared to him. Joseph records that he called me by name and said that God had a work for me to do.
Following the visits of the angel Moroni to young Joseph and his acquisition of the plates, he commenced the difficult assignment of translation. I love the words Oliver Cowdery used to describe the time he spent assisting Joseph with the translation of the Book of Mormon. I quote them. These were days never to be forgotten, to sit under the sound of a voice, dictated by the inspiration of heaven, awakened the utmost gratitude of this bosom.
After the angel Moroni's visit, other heavenly messengers conferred upon Joseph holy priesthood authority, divine keys, power, and revelations from God.
The temple in Kirtland was built by the saints in their dire poverty. Joseph himself worked in the stone quarry. Following the dedication of this first temple, which was a glorious occasion, the risen Christ appeared to Joseph and Oliver as they knelt in prayer, and I quote their words. The veil was taken from our minds, and the eyes of our understanding were opened. We saw the Lord standing upon the breastwork of the pulpit before us, and under his feet was a paved work of pure gold in color like amber. His eyes were as the flame of fire. The hair of his head was white like the pure snow. His countenance shone above the brightness of the sun, and his voice was as the sound of rushing of great waters, even the voice of Jehovah saying, I am the first and the last. I am he who liveth. I am he who was slain. I am your advocate with the Father.
Probably everyone has had or will have an occasion to feel as Joseph Smith felt when he asked why such sorrow had to come and how long its darkness and damage would remain. When he cries from the depth and discouragement of his confinement, O God, where art thou? How long shall thy hand be stayed? Yea, O Lord, how long shall thy people suffer before thy bowels be moved with compassion toward them? Just at the time he felt most alone and distant, into this dismal dungeon and this depressing time, the voice of God came, saying, My son, peace be unto thy soul. Thine adversity and thine afflictions shall be but a small moment. And then, if thou endure it well, God shall exalt thee on high. Thou shalt triumph over all thy foes.
In Joseph's last public address to a large congregation in Nauvoo, he declared, I do not regard my own life. I am ready to be offered as a sacrifice for this people. You are a good people. Therefore I love you with all my heart. Greater love hath no man than that he should lay down his life for his friends.
When Joseph went to Carthage to deliver himself up to the pretended requirements of the law, he said, I am going like a lamb to the slaughter, but I am calm as a summer's morning. I have a conscience void of offense towards God and towards all men. I shall die innocent, and it shall be said of me, he was murdered in cold blood.
I bear my witness that Joseph Smith was the prophet of the Restoration, just as he claimed to be. I echo the strains of that stirring hymn, Praise to the man who communed with Jehovah.
Praise to the man who communed with Jehovah. Jesus anointed that prophet and seer, blessed to open the last dispensation. Kings shall extol him, and nations revere. Great is his glory, and endless his priesthood. Ever and ever the keys he will hold. Faithful and true he will enter his kingdom, crowned in the midst of the prophets of old.